You must hire people who are better than you. You must always hire people who are better than you. And I know it shakes something in you. I even have that. Sometimes I look at my people and I think, oh my God, you could do my job easily, man. You're so amazing. You're so good. Every one of my staff members, I really think like, God, they're so good. I'm always at awe.
Have you ever noticed that LinkedIn is not an accurate representation of who people really are? Welcome to Season 2 of Leadership Lab, the show where I take you with me as we do a deep dive on some of the most interesting personalities in the life sciences industry today. In order for us to do so, I need you to unlock your phone and just tap the bell. The goal of this is to inspire the next generation of leaders, to create value for them and really tell the stories that will allow you to get where you're trying to get to in your career. You ready? Let's go. Hi, and welcome to the Leadership Lab. My name is Maurice. Today, I am joined by Annick Whyte. Annick is an AI thought leader at Pfizer. Welcome.
Hi, Maurice. Thanks for having me.
Pleasure. Annick, maybe start just by telling us, what does an AI thought leader at Pfizer do, or what are you guys working on right now in terms of what your job is?
Yeah, right. The job is always what we make it. So as an AI thought leader at Pfizer, one of my first remits that I had was to set up a team that did quick experiments using AI. Now, what does that mean? So, for instance, in commercial, we created a brand plan with AI, so with a full SWOT analysis. And so my team that I created, it within 2 days, it vibe codes a brand planning tool. It jumps to the latest AI models. So as a thought leader, I'll be checking all different types of AI models continuously and looking how the market evolves. And then whatever we build within 2 days, we show it back to the business. And honestly, they're always blown away. We find that the AI is usually at par to the people who are actually doing the work, if not better in some cases.
How long does it take the people?
It takes the people about, a month to write a brand plan. And it takes AI, an hour.
God help us all. Okay. Super cool. And I'm looking forward to dive into that a lot. But usually what we like to do is kind of go a little bit back. And what we try to do here is understand, for those people out there who would love to have a job like yours, how did that happen? Right. So going way back, where are you from actually, first of all?
So I'm from Switzerland. My parents are from London, from the UK, so I always spoke English at home. But I'm born and raised in Switzerland, and I grew up in Basel on the countryside. I hated the countryside. I was always drawn to the city.
Okay, so Baselland.
Yes.
Somewhere, whereabouts?
Oberwil, Baselland.
Oberwil.
Yeah.
Yes, I've heard of it.
Oh, there you go.
Okay.
The small village making a name for itself.
So you were born here, though. Your parents came from the UK. Do you have many ties back there, like family?
Yeah, I have my aunt, I have my cousins.
And do you go back much?
I used to go back more frequently, but now maybe once a year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you think that shaped you differently growing up in somewhere like Oberwil, and you've got these two parents who speak with English accents, probably didn't speak the local language right away, I would guess? Do you think that the cultural, let's say two different cultural influences had any impact on you growing up?
I think what was a big influence for me was the free mindset, right? Coming from the UK, London being more upbeat, being, a big town, people are freer. They dress freer, they're more open-minded, more experimental, versus a little village in Switzerland in 1992, right? When I was 12 years old, was still very, very inward, quaint, not worldly, right?
Yeah.
So coming in with a different mindset didn't necessarily always sit well. It eventually, the older I got, it became interesting. When I was young, it was more complicated.
It's funny because now my kids are in school in Switzerland, and the way that they come home and the things they have to do, I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, why? But it's so, we had a feedback session the other day, and they were talking about, well, you have to keep your work area much cleaner than you do right now, and you have to put everything back when you're finished using it. And we had these things too, but they were more like loose suggestions than like, we didn't ever you discussed grades when I was growing up, but not how you behave kind of socially and your contribution to the group and how you have to have everything exactly right and come in right on time. And I don't know, did you bump into anything like that?
I did. And I think one of the things I had very early on, and I find my kids have as well, is a bullshit radar. Yeah. I noticed that kids have that. And I think Swiss people, me, anyone, all kids have that, right? The question is, how much will you rebel against it?
Well, how much will you actually say it?
Yeah.
So you might think it, but you're
Yes.
too polite, or your culture doesn't really
Yeah.
allow for that. Okay. So
Exactly.
you were calling bullshit
I was calling bullshit.
at an early age.
Very early age. I'd say, no, this makes no sense. I'm not going to learn this by heart. Why? It's written here.
Like
Why
what?
would I
Like
do
what
it?
would you not learn?
What was it? History. I was good at history, but I saw no sense in learning which dates exactly. Was it the 15th of June or the 20th of June that some guy, was born or died or whatever? I felt like that was absolutely unnecessary detail. So my history teacher used to say, actually, correcting my exams was like reading a story, because I would just be very philosophical, but I would never put any dates or anything. And so I would avoid it, but my grades were okay. But I was never fabulous. I was never really good at school. And now as an adult and having my own kids, I put them into public school, and I decided I still don't like the way school is done. And now they're in a very free-thinking school, private school, which is just so fabulous. They're so happy. They love it. They enjoy it, and they learn with pleasure. And I'm saying this I couldn't believe it. I didn't think it was possible.
It's an interesting topic because I guess we've all heard this whole thing that schools were designed by the Prussians to, basically foster the Industrial Revolution, and people need to be on time, doing a thing at a place, not getting up and moving around is, I'm not saying the school. I think my kids have a great school. And it's a public school, and I really think it's fantastic. But with that said, there's a lot of people who are telling me terrible stories, and more of my friends are putting their kids into schools which are a little bit more free thinking, a little bit more open. How do you think that that's going to translate to working later on, right? Do you think there's a benefit somebody once told me the only benefit of school is learning to do something on time. Like you have an assignment, it's due on that day, you have to plan to get it done. That's pretty much the biggest skill you're going to get. How do you think your kids going into something like a more free thinking school will impact them in their career later on? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah. You know what? I've been looking a lot to Japan as well, because Japan also has modeled their schools in a more free-thinking way, because they realized that their students weren't innovative anymore. Yeah, they weren't spitting out any artists, no free thinkers, no innovators. They were stagnating, and people hated going to school. And so Japan changed the model. They give no grades until they don't give grades until they're about 12 years old. But they do have responsibility. For instance, in Japan, the kids, they clean the schoolroom, the toilets every day, right? So I think being a free thinker doesn't mean you don't learn responsibility, right?
Yeah.
I think under pressure and under restrictions, physical restrictions, emotional pressure at a young age, you lose joy. And by losing joy, you lose the ability to innovate and to be creative and to be yourself, right? And that's why the generation that you and I are living in is process-oriented. We can fix anything, and we can endure, and we can suffer, right? We can, yeah. If you tell me it's impossible, I'd be like, yeah, I got it, right? But the reality is that isn't necessary. And it's not even, and it's even less necessary with AI, right? Because all these dates and everything we learn by heart, we don't need that anymore. And most likely we never needed it. Our generation doesn't need it either, right? So the skills that we need to learn at school, and that's where schools are going to have to adjust, aren't learning to find knowledge. Yeah, it's about learning to digest knowledge. And it's about self-learning, learning from yourself. How am I creative? What contribution can I give to society, to myself, to my family, to my friends? And that's how you then create a culture of innovation, which is what will be needed.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I guess, if you think back, 2,000 years ago, I needed to know how to make a stick sharp and throw it at an animal to kill the animal and chase it down for days and have that skill set, which I definitely don't have now. But the evolution of my life is that I can't find my way anywhere anymore in my car. I know where I'm going, but I'll just put it in anyway, so I know what time I'm getting there. But then I realized I have to bring my kids to maybe to a football tournament. And I've been to that stadium 3 times. Like I used to, like I'd drive it once and then I know the way and I wouldn't have to. So that skill set is definitely also going away from me. In many ways, a lot of people tell me they feel like they're getting dumber. So I don't know, because we're basically outsourcing more and more of our life to, up till now, computers, and now more and more to AI. What do you think, what kind of impact do you think that's going to have?
I think the thing is, and I'll bring it back to school, right? I think our generation isn't built in the way that we need to be built to be able to consume these tools, right? And let me say what I mean here. So I need to discipline myself not to use Google Maps. I'll do it once, I'll do it twice, and then I'll start driving without it, right? And I can get lazy with AI tools because they'll write me a slide deck. They'll research it for me, yeah? Now, other people that are the new generation that is growing up freer, even public schools are adjusting, right? That are growing up freer, where the people are more focused on themselves and they're more self-aware to their own feelings, more self-aware to other people's feelings. Their mind is more occupied with something very different. It's not occupied with how will I get places? How will I solve a mathematical problem? How will I go on holiday? Where will I go? Their mind was more occupied with what is fulfilling for me. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like even when you see people apply for jobs, I hear the older generation going, everyone's so lazy now. They only want to work part-time and da-da-da-da-da, right?
Yeah, man.
Yeah, man. And it's hard for our generation because we were trained, work full-time, work overtime. Lazy people don't work overtime, work on the weekends, right? And the new generation, and when you do that, you can't really be innovative and creative anymore because you're tired and you're exhausted and you're stressed, right?
Yeah.
And the new generations, they come in and they say, you know what? I know I need time for myself. Yeah, I know this so that I can be innovative. And they know, this has been a hard week, man. I am going to go hiking. Yeah, whereas maybe we would go gaming. Yoga studios are popping up all over the world like crazy, like coffee shops, right? And it's because the shift is coming to inner growth, inner peace, innovate, be inspirational, because we don't need these little typey jobs anymore,
So declutter.
Yeah.
So you have more bandwidth to use. Okay. I don't want to get into too much philosophy already. I actually still want to find out about, we got sidetracked and I hope we do again. But you were in Auberville. Did you have any idea what you wanted to do when you were a kid?
I used to watch my mom as an assistant typewriting. And so I thought that was the best job of the world. Just typing away, man. I would just type away and I would try to go fast and I would just be like sitting there and the noise of the type. And I had a little fake phone and I would pick it up, making little fake appointments. And I thought that was the best job of the world. Yeah.
Okay. But is that what you wanted to do?
I don't know, man. Okay. Who knows? When I was 13, I just wanted to be cool, right?
Okay. Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess when you're 13, that's pretty much... And then, like, ultimately, when you get to the workplace, this is also what people are trying to do in the end, in many ways.
Can be, yeah.
I've seen a lot of workplaces very similar to high schools in some ways. So you wanted to be cool. You went to high school. Did you then, after high school, you still wanted to be cool? Or you were like, hey, now I need to do something?
Yeah.
Was there a particular drive? Like, I guess what I'm trying to ask here is not necessarily did I want to be in AI or did I want to be like as a precursor to that in IT? Were there certain aspects of the job, regardless of what the subject matter would be, that appealed to you? Was it like having freedom to creatively think? Was it interaction with people? Was it putting structures where there's no structures? Like, was there anything that you thought, hey, that's what I'd like to do? Or was it more of a subject type of thing that drove decisions? Or were you just like, hey, I'll just see what happens?
Yeah. So definitely not when I was younger, right? I mean, what did I know? What does a 16-year-old know unless you're like passionate about something, like super passionate? Some people have that, right? They're passionate about engineering. They're passionate architects. They love buildings, God knows what. Interested in God knows what. I never had that. So I always stayed with the flow. So my first job was an assistant. So I worked as an
so
assistant.
you fulfilled the goal.
I fulfilled the goal.
Totally goal-driven.
It was so boring, man. And it was before the internet. And so there was nothing to be done. After 2 hours in the morning and the work was done, there was nothing to be done. And so I continuously, and I think that was the trend of my career. Like I would just get bored and I would be like, please, can I have something more to do? And already there I started like the expenses. I remember all the assistants were doing it by hand. And so I just created a spreadsheet. And so that already speeded stuff up. Like there were just small little hints where I always felt like this, I just waste my time, must do it faster.
I don't need to learn the dates.
I don't need to learn the dates.
Just need to be able to tell the story.
Yes, right. And I don't need to know, like, I don't need to like copy paste the stickers of every travel and glue it on. I mean, it just felt ridiculous, right? So I just automated all of that. And so I just always felt like I need, more time for me as well. I don't want to do silly work. And so that was kind of the red thread. And every time I get busy at work, I think, I don't want to live like this. This is too hard, man. I need to make this easier. Why is this so hard? Or if I'd have tough discussions as an IT person when you're writing contracts or you're experimenting with AI, you're always talking to the legal department, right? And so you're always feeling like, what a drag. Like I would often have that in my career. I think, what a drag. So when I was doing supply chain and I had to talk to quality, I would think, what a drag talking to those people. And then I would think, how can I get rid of them? Yes, how can I get rid of them? And then I would think, I work in IT, there must be a way. Yes, let's automate this. And so I would automate the review of the requirements by the quality team. And with AI today, you can create a cognitive auditor of AI that pre-audits or pre-compliance checks or any contracts you have, pre-checks it. So by the time it gets to the team that I find a pain in my butt, it's already a good quality. So I can avoid that, And so that was always a bit of something underlying. And I was also a big fan of independence. So I moved out when I was 20.
Okay.
I always wanted to be independent.
Into Basel?
I moved into the big city of Basel. Okay. Actually, no, first I moved to Binningen, a little step. And then eventually one step at a time. Then eventually I went and lived downtown, which was super cool. And I just wanted to be free, also financially free. So as I was working as an assistant, I realized this money is not going to cut it. Not going to cut it. And I didn't want to be dependent on anyone, not on my boyfriends to buy me drinks or anything, right? I wanted to be independent. And so when I got my first job offer as a promotion, I was a bit like, but then my boss was like, it's much more money. I was like, yeah, I'll go for that. That's independence. Okay. I will take that.
So that was in the same company?
That was at Syngenta, yeah. So I was there pretty steady goer. So I was 10 years at Syngenta and then 10 years at Amgen. So I'm kind of a steady goer. But my last few years have not been steady at all anymore. But usually that was my modus.
Okay. So your first job you took was, you just got a job as an assistant at Syngenta. What was the next step? Then
I worked as an assistant to the IT department. And that's where I then started giving IT training on WebEx, super old tool.
Oh, I remember
WebEx, right? And started training people on IT tools. And then I got my first big break. And I think it's the interpersonal skills I have. I am good with people. I'm relaxed, I'm chilled, I'm easy to talk to. And there was the head of Asia IT, Dan Rose, if you ever listen to this, Dan offered me an assignment to go to Singapore for 3 months to roll out a portfolio tool, travel throughout all of Asia and train everyone on it. Unthinkable today.
Cool, like your early 20s.
Unthinkable today. Yeah, I was 23. And I was like, yeah, sure, I'll do it. And then, God, was I afraid. I remember I was so fearful. I didn't really know what portfolio meant. I didn't really know like what a project is and how to manage a project, let alone train people on project management methodology. I just knew nothing. And I realized that. And I was like,
At what point did you realize that? Was this while you were packing or?
No, I think about maybe 2-3 weeks before, people handed me the slides, and then some other person also asked me, can you educate people on Sarbanes-Oxley while you're there? And I was like, yeah, sure, whatever. What is that? And so I was like reading through all this deck that he gave me about Sarbanes-Oxley, and I started feeling this feeling here in my stomach of, holy shit, what have I done? I need to quit. I must leave. I cannot do this. I will not be able to, I must go. I cannot take this. And so I panicked. And then I went into a phase, and this is my career advice, of resilience. So I started meditating. I did yoga. I practiced my butt off. I asked people to help me. I did a presentation skills training. They video filmed me, comms, and I practiced and practiced and practiced. And even when I got onto the plane to Singapore, I had little tears coming down my cheeks because I was so afraid. And I was only 23 and I'd never been to Asia. But then I remember sitting in business class, fiddling around with the chair, and I thought, oh, best day of my life. Great.
I made it.
I made it. It was so awesome. Went to the hotel, ginormous hotel. And I remember I was in a skyscraper for the first time, and I was standing there looking up like, holy shit, it's 60th floor, and there's another 90 floors over there. And I was like, it was just but it was a breakthrough in my career. And then I've kept that thread. I'll just go with the flow. If things come my way, I just trust and have faith that there is a reason for this coming my way.
I want to go back to something there, because you talked about going with the flow, but you didn't just go with the flow. You got an opportunity, but then what I heard after that was I worked my ass off. I practiced and practiced and practiced. They videotaped me, so I knew I was doing it right. I thoroughly prepared myself for that opportunity.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, that's very different than I just go with the flow.
Well, I think I just go with the flow for me means I go with the flow of the opportunity, right? So even any opportunity that came my way, I would say yes. A bit like the Yes Man of Jim Carrey, if you know the movie,
I do,
right?
I do, yeah.
So saying yes to it, saying yes to the ride, staying in the flow of the opportunities that are coming my way. Of course, always you need to match whatever opportunity and stretch you take with. There is hard work to be muscled in, especially when you're younger, right? Because I write a slide deck now in an hour, which used to in my 20s take me 2 days, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just a different kind of lift.
You build more muscle, right?
You build more muscle.
You build more muscle. You build thicker skin.
Yeah.
All these types of things. Okay, so go to Asia, see the skyscrapers, probably eat some great food, travel around for 3 months. How'd it go?
How did it go? You know what? I connected with the people there. I met so many different, interesting people. And they all knew I knew nothing, right? I mean, they all knew that I knew nothing. But because I'm easy to go with, right? Everyone sent me the data. It was always the biggest problem in HQ was that people wouldn't submit their quarterly portfolios. Yeah. After I went to Asia, everyone would. They'd be like, oh, Annick, yes, of course, here, bum, 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 whatever you ask for. They would send me everything because I built relationships with all of them, genuine relationships, because they were just so nice and so fun and interesting. And it was just such an experience. And it really showed me, and now in retrospect, I realize, I think the key was just being curious and meeting people genuinely. Genuinely engaging. I didn't know any of these concepts of networking at the time, right? I was 23. I just went with wherever my feelings were. Would I like this person? I would hang out with them. Would I not like him? I would not hang out with them, right? And I just happened to like them all, except for the guy in China who I really disliked. But he still submitted. Eventually gave me his portfolio numbers. But which I think is also the lesson, right? The balance, right? It cannot all be amazing, right? Not a whole trip to Asia can be amazing. There needs to be something shit, right? And China was really shit.
Well, something to work on, I guess.
It was okay. I went back years later and set up the Beijing office for Amgen. So
okay,
I have somewhat recovered from my China trip.
I think you bring up something interesting because we talked about school. And, there's one thing about getting good grades and you wonder how you're going to do or how people are going to do. We often take it as an indication like, oh my God, that person's a valedictorian. They're going to do great in life. Or this person has straight A's or whatever it is, sixes. And that was kind of a belief I held for a long time because I studied sciences and I thought scientists are the best. We do science and that changes the world. And then I got in my first roles and I realized, the scientists actually, no, it's the people who do all the deals. They're the ones who are like held up on high in a company. And what I really have seen over time is that the biggest predictor is the ability to build these relationships. And I'm not saying it's only innate. It's definitely something you can develop, but it's sort of moving forward with a genuine approach, I think is one of the biggest things that you can have. Now, I don't tell my kids like, don't do well in school, but I'm always looking at like, how are they progressing as people more as an indicator to how they're going to do in their lives. Like, are they going to be happy? Are they going to build those relationships? Are they going to do well in their jobs? You can do any job you want. If you go in with a genuine appreciation for the people that you're going to either serve or work with, you're always going to do better. And I mean, I think you've kind of proven that on the Asia trip. How did it develop after that? Like, did they look at it and say, oh my God, like, look, everyone's submitting their portfolio numbers. Like, how did you do that? Here, take another job and tell us, like, how did it go?
Yeah. I was on a high and everyone was like, it's amazing. And you know how you suddenly become the talk of the town. It was great. So then at the time, the hype of women's networks started kicking in and I got invited to my first women's network meeting. And I was so alienated by the concept and the idea that I was even being discriminated. Like, I was like, what? Oh, is this like, what? Like, is this happening? Is this like, I hadn't realized, and I also quickly, like at school, and this is, I'm saying this, I believe in women's networks. I absolutely do. And any kind of networks, right? Any people working together to achieve better and to help each other. Absolutely, right? But when it is a fake construct, yeah, and that's what I smelt there, fake construct, yeah, women drinking whiskey, yeah. For me, that is not it, right? For me, what women bring to the table is intuition, right? We have a different skill set than men, yeah. We have a better gut feeling. We have a we just have different feelings. You know it. Your wife has different thoughts and you have different thoughts.
No,
we always say
we're dialed in exactly the same.
Right?
Totally.
What was this book? Men are from Mars and women are from Venus or whatever. But going off track. But I think what I realized there was like, this is bullshit. But I also realized this could work for me, right? So then they offered me a job. The woman offered me a job. Like, I'm trying to promote young women, go into SAP, IT. And I didn't have a university degree at the time. She was like, oh, this is a scandal. You must have a university degree. And I was getting like, ugh, hated school. So I did an HR degree. I was like, let's compromise. I'll do a little HR thingy.
I saw you did CIPD.
Yes, exactly, yeah. CIPD. And so I started my SAP IT job. And it was a disaster. Oh my God, I was terrible at it. I came into a team that had just lost everyone. They had reorganized, and then I came in as this famed talent by the boss's boss, assigned, just placed onto a warm seat that had only just been left by one of their friends. And so people really disliked me. And no one wanted to teach me anything. And I had to learn. I had a tough project. It was a global project. And it was horrible, it was terrible. And it was really a time of suffering for me. And again, during that time of suffering where I realized, God, the people don't like me and, I'm not feeling it, I again kind of turned to, what did I start up then? I think exercise and mental work. I went back into mental work, breath work, building up resilience, the sleepless nights where I'm worrying. I managed to regulate. And I started finding ways to regulate my fear of failure, to regulate my need to be liked by my peers. And that was an important step. And at the end, I also did my university degree while I was there because I hated it so much. So then I felt like, well, might as well use some hours here to do my degree. So I did my degree. And I think what's important there is the dark times in our careers are not necessarily the bad times. Yeah. It's all a mindset.
That's where you build the muscle.
It's where you build the muscle, and it's where I got my degree, and it's where I learned about SAP, and SAP ended up being a really good skill set, right? And at the end, they fired me, and I wrote some kind of thesis on how I think they should do master data management. And I did it because I had to do it for university. And so I presented it to them, and I knew the CIO and everyone because they had kind of grown up there, right? And it was such a mind-blowing breakthrough. And so they implemented my strategy. They pulled back my resignation. They didn't fire me after all. And it was like everything was great, and I was kind of the hotshot again.
So wait. They fired you. Yeah. Then you said, you're doing it wrong. And they said, oh, actually, we take it back. Please come back again. Yes.
So I was still there. I never left the premises. And so they offered me a job. They gave me a really hard project again, and to transform that thesis that I wrote, that strategy that I wrote. And I was in the middle of implementing it, and then you called me up. Yeah, you called me up, and you said, hey, Annick, there's this role at Amgen in Zug, SAP, HR. And I was like, oh, yes. What a gift, man. Because again, I knew that project I had started was outsourcing something to Kolkata. And as I was doing that, I felt, well, it's bullshit. It's not going to work, man. I realized that in the middle of the project, and I went to my boss and I was like, I'm not sure about outsourcing. I'm just not sure it's going to be worth the effort. And they were like, no, outsourcing is the way. We must do this and da-da-da. And so I was kind of happy at the end to kind of realize, oh, I'm not sure about this outsourcing thing. And I know it was kind of a bit of a controversial thing even today, right? What do you outsource? What do you keep? Where do you go?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, the Amgen story I'm a little bit familiar with, obviously. What would you say was the biggest learning that you had while you were there, besides Beijing?
My career really accelerated at Amgen. And I think one of the baselines was that I knew a major ERP tool inside out. So I knew SAP. Yeah, that always gave me the foundation to engage with any tech department, because everyone would always say, oh, I'm a Viva department, but you know SAP, so you know what I'm talking about, ish. Yeah? And so I think anyone who is going into any creed or skill, right, or job, you must bring in one foundational skill. It doesn't have to be, crazy in depth, but you need to understand something, at least in IT. Like you need to have something, or in finance, you need to be either a bookkeeper or something.
Yeah.
There's some
hard skills.
Some hard
versus all the soft skills. Because you can have all the soft skills, but when it comes down to brass tacks, you have to know what you're talking about as well.
To some extent, right?
Yeah.
And there as well, when I had the twins, I have twins, and I went back to work, and that was career changing, and my career accelerated after I had the twins, which was mind blowing. Because you know what, I was so tired that I just had no capacity for any kind of bullshit or any kind of fluff or any kind of influencing. I just told everyone exactly how I think it is, with respect and honesty. And I didn't coffee break with anyone. I didn't hang out with anyone. And people I did hang out with, it was fun and relaxed. And I was always honest. And that was a career changer. I realized before that, I was always kind of trained, go influence people, go actively listen, go network, and I was kind of listening, what does this person want? Let me respond based on this person's needs. And when I was just too tired to think of any of that, I would just say, look, if you want to go to market, and you want to use AI, you're going to have to use this tool and you're going to have to do it like this. Otherwise, it's not going to work. Do you want to do it? Yes. Good. Okay. We'll do it then and then. Okay, good. And I would just go very straight, even with vendors. I'd be like, look, I'm not going to read your contract, man, but I will lock your resources in. This is what I need. Are you going to do that with me? Yes. Okay, good. Here. Thanks. Like I was just very clear on what I need to be able to operate. And that was mind-blowing. And so I got site after site. And at the end, when I left, I had 3 jobs. I was running 3 executive jobs at a time, but I was okay because I was very clear as well with the people I hired. So even then, I learned really, when I had the kids, I really learned you must hire people who are better than you. You must always hire people who are better than you. Yeah. And I know it, shakes something in you. I even have that sometimes. I look at my people and I think, oh my God, you could do my job easily, man. You're so amazing. You're so good. Every one of my staff members, I really think like, God, they're so good. I'm always at awe. And that has also been a career changer because the better your people are, the more you accelerate, right? And not just because they challenge you, but because you're just this awesome team, right? And yeah, with like that, you can just, sky's the limit.
Easy to win.
Easy to win when you have the best team, right?
Yeah. I think you just like gave a lot of really good advice. Like just have babies and get tired, everybody.
Yeah.
That's the key.
It works.
But no, I think you're talking about focus.
It's
like,
focus.
Like you're just
exactly.
focusing on only the important stuff. And I think you could look at a lot of people's jobs and you could probably take away 90% of what you do and still perform very well. Have you ever seen Office Space?
No.
Movie?
No, I haven't.
You should watch that. It's about a guy who just gives up at work and just starts talking freely and speaking his mind. And they're like, oh, he needs a promotion. This he's a straight shooter. Watch it. It's very funny. Jennifer Aniston and somebody else. Anyway. Okay, so you're at Amgen, kicking ass, being tired. And then you made a change?
I made a change. And at the end at Amgen, so there was this little empire built by my boss. And eventually my boss kind of fell out of graces and his whole department was closed. So we were all closed out and this whole wing of leaders was kind of, fired. And I had an opportunity then to stay at Amgen. A job was offered to me and I'd been there 10 years. And they did really want me to stay. And I just really felt, enough is enough. I have outgrown this company. I am done. I want a fresh start. I don't want people to remind me 10 years ago when you messed up that SAP project, remember, maybe that will happen again. I feel like, so I felt really freed by that. And it was an interesting time because I also decided not to work. So I decided to take my 1 year leave and not do anything. And I know a lot of people kept saying to me, Annick, HR told me, Annick, you're a woman. If you have a gap on your CV, you will never find a job again. And I had this inner raider, like at school, like at work. And I thought, bullshit, absolute bullshit. And so I took the time. My husband wasn't working at the time. He was taking care of the kids. So we grabbed the kids and we bought ourselves a camper van and we toured about and we had a great time. And it was just relaxing and nice and fun. And I put it on my CV. I wrote, road trip, 1 year.
Where'd you go?
I went to Hawaii. So we didn't road trip.
Drive?
So first we actually went on a big airplane trip because the camper vans were in high demand because it was just after COVID. So we had to wait a few months for it to arrive. So we went first to Hawaii. We went to the US as well, Florida, California. It was tricky travel because it was just after COVID.
Yeah.
And the boys were 4. And it was just fun, and it was challenging, like it was culturally challenging and because of COVID, but it was also fun and rewarding. And then I came back and we road tripped down to Barcelona, past Gibraltar, all the way to Portugal, all the way around till Bilbao. And on the road, I was interviewing for my job at CGen in the camper. I'd be like, hi.
Yeah, but I think I've done 3 1 year breaks in my life. The most recent was before I started the company. And honestly, some of the most invaluable things I've ever done in my life. And now, with 4-year-olds, you're going to remember that forever. They might also even remember a little bit as well, being younger. And I think that it also opens up perspectives and allows you to have this kind of cultural understanding of different people, which again, when we talked about building the relationships at the beginning, I think is so important. And to have a little bit of a break. Like when people have a break on their CV, usually I ask, what did you do? Well, I wanted to become a yoga teacher for years, and I did that. Or I always wanted to go see New Zealand, and so I did that. And I'm like, you know what? That's great. Yes, let's keep discussing this role. It's very different from, I sat around, did nothing for a while. I think that people who, and even in the case if you have that time, take it to either enjoy yourself or better yourself in some way. So great. And then you started at Seagen. And what was your mandate there? What were you supposed to do? Because that was like starting and it was going to grow. And so what were you supposed to do there?
Yeah, Seagen. So Seagen, I was brought in as the head of IT International. The remit was vague. For sure, the usual stuff, set up the office, make sure all the helpline and computers work and stuff like that, which I knew very little about, honestly, like real hardware stuff. So, but lucky enough, I had a good leader there. And then to set up the whole kind of backbone, commercial systems, HR systems and all of that was from Global. So it was really very commercially focused. So implementing Viva and stuff like that. And eventually I sat down with the GM and we were kind of thinking, and then we kind of felt like, I think we need an AI leader.
What year was that?
I don't know, man. What were we, 2026? So it must be about 2020.
Okay.
Maybe.
Yep.
2021.
Okay. So who said that? You or him?
Yeah. Lee, if you're watching this, who said that? I think, who said that? I think Lee and I both said it. We came from different sides at it. I had been researching about AI and I was feeling kind of bummed out because we were going super slow to market, 3 months for a website, all that kind of stuff. And it, spending so much money on promotional materials, and then we're trying to get market access, and all of that's taking super long. And one of the big roadblocks is, well, obviously always legal because of all the contract reviews, and also IT. And I did not want to be a roadblock anymore, right? It was not a nice place to be. I wanted to be an enabler. Everyone always said, let's partner. And I always realized I cannot partner if we're doing these heavy lifting tools. I must then always apologize for it. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And I don't want to be there, and it came again from this inner need to be fulfilled in my job.
And what was the first thing you did? Like you said, okay, because this is all pre-ChatGPT, kind of taking the world by storm. What was the first initiative thing you built, thing you changed or fixed or made better?
So Seagen was kind of a bumpy ride because we got acquired pretty fast by Pfizer. So I think from the moment I brought this AI lead in, 2 weeks later, we got the announcement, you have been acquired by Pfizer. And so I sat down with the GM and said, so what do you want to do? He's like, well, let's innovate the hell out of this until it's through. I was like, yeah, well, let's have fun, right? And so we created imagery. We started creating imagery for promotional materials. So like the Spanish GM called us up and he's like, look, I'm presenting at this conference. I want a picture of lots of women standing on this famous place somewhere in Spain. The mood is like this, the lights. And we're like, yeah, we'll do that for you. And so we generated it like in a minute, sent it over. And he's like, oh, they look a little happy. We're like, yes, it's okay. And we were using Mid-Journey at the time. And so we made it kind of a little less happy and da-da-da. And it got there. And then we're like, there you go. And so it needed someone who had the courage to play along. Because a lot of people, when we launched it in HQ, were like, nah, I'm happy to just work with my agents. Like the marketing people were like, AI, I'll just work with my agency. Sounds like a lot of work.
Yeah. Okay.
But then we had the early adopters like this GM in Spain, and he was like, can you translate all the promotional materials to Spanish, the stuff they're using in the UK? And we're like, yeah, boom, done. And at the time we used, what did we use? I don't remember. Some translation tool, which was really good. And so we started translating promotional materials, and then we were just free, right? We had no real pressure. We didn't really have any products to bring to market anymore because we were in this pre-acquisition phase, right? But we wanted to prepare for launch. There were some of the stuff that was still mid-launch, some countries where we just got access. So we did want to still kind of serve those patients. And so we did the websites. We created websites in like an hour. We would just clone and copy whatever was there.
Yeah.
And we didn't really ask the legal department, and we didn't really ask our global friends in IT either. So we just did. We went absolutely rogue, and we just did. And every now and then we would be somewhere presenting it, and someone from my peers would dial in and they'd be like, Annick, this hasn't gone through compliance, And I'd be like, yes, because it doesn't have to. It's just a website, And I think that's where I learned my second skill, where I was like, you must have your inner compass, because it always used to be that the business would go out and just implement whatever they want. And we in IT would run around trying to fence it up and make it secure, as if it were not secure from the get-go, right? Like it's like bringing in, SAP and doing a compliance review of SAP. Well, Jesus Christ, every company runs SAP. Do you really need to go and do all these due diligence and security assessments for SAP or Workday? Or smells a bit like a waste of time, right? So you can always assume if Novartis, if Roche, if Big Pharma is using it already somewhere, it's most likely secure, right? And, and as an IT person, you can try to hack it, right? It'll take you a day, and you will also know it's secure. The rest is just paper war. Yeah, filling out, I'm not sure if you've ever done this, to look, is it secure? It's like a book of questions.
We recently did a TPRM.
Yeah.
Third-party risk assessment.
Yeah.
TPRM? I don't remember. But we just got lumped in with every other type of supplier for a pharmaceutical company. So they were asking about, like, how are we ethically working with patients? And I was like, and how are we protecting the patient's data? I'm like, but we don't have any of that. But they said, you got to pass this if you want to work with us. And honestly, we spent way more money than I would have liked to spend to become compliant in their eyes. I mean, you met Francie out there. She'll tell you, like, it was. And so every time we had to change a setting, it threw off some of our automation. So then we got to go fix the automation. So that it was. So I agree with you 100%. And then they say, oh well, what email are you running? I said, well, we run Google. They're like, well, what's the address of Google and the name of their compliance officer? And I was like, but I don't know. But I think it's okay because they're pretty secure. And so I agree with you 100%. But you went rogue, and then transitioned over to Pfizer. And now, up to present day, you guys are doing some pretty cool stuff. It sounds like some pretty cool stuff. That's why when we spoke last, I was like, you got to come on the podcast because this all sounds so interesting. What are some examples about maybe things that people don't even realize are happening at this stage that obviously you can talk about? It's not top secret stuff. I mean, what are some examples of like really quick wins or things maybe we don't even know are currently being done by AI from your perspective?
I think, there's the usual thing. Companies need to go to market, right? So all of the brand plan creation, all of the promotional materials, all of the MLR checking, if you're in pharma, all of that can be done by AI. Absolutely, absolutely necessary. And the best tools I'm finding here to use are really OpenAI. Google Gemini is good. And I'm saying this publicly again, I always feel there's some Microsoft sniper waiting for me somewhere, but I just feel Copilot is not at par, yeah? It just doesn't have, it just doesn't have the experience, OpenAI has been out there longer and has gathered more information. It doesn't have the experience, and you need to really know what you're doing. And even if you know what you're doing, it just isn't as good. There's this one cool experiment we had where we do the war of AI. So we did a competitive analysis from one product to another to a company. And we had OpenAI battle Google Gemini, battle Microsoft Copilot. And it was like a student, a professor versus like a crazy smart person, Elon Musk kind of person, right? Okay. So, and it became really evident where is the best analysis coming out.
So when you say a battle, like they had to compete on the same task? They
had to compete on the same task. So they had to create a SWOT analysis for a given product, right? And then AI comes in and says, no, this is a silly argument. This makes no sense. That makes sense. This makes no sense. And you simulate it through vibe coding a front end, which is kind of like an app. Yeah, and I think that's so important because I know what I keep hearing. Everyone's like, Annick, give me AI advice. How can I learn to prompt? And I think like, huh? Why would you want to learn that? Why do you want to? And then I realized that the hype of AI is everyone thinks it's about writing emails and writing prompts. It is not about writing prompts and it's not about writing emails. It's about vibe coding. You need to be able to vibe code, and this really means like creating your own little app to prove the thesis that you have with AI. My thesis is that AI can write a better SWOT analysis than a human can. And now here, look, here's a pretty app called brand planning. And here is the SWOT analysis done by AI. And yes, I'm prompting, of course. Give me this, give me that. Improve my prompt for me, please. What have I forgotten in my prompt? What do I need to put in more? Of course. And the prompting is key. But what's really key is that you know what you're talking about. So my team has commercial background. They don't, know nothing about brand plan. They have not seen a SWOT analysis. So they build N8N workflows in the back that jump between different large language models and different AI models, and they get the best out of everything.
Sorry, just a second.
This is a bit far,
N8N? Can you, again,
it's
assume you're like a moron like me.
Yeah, sorry.
So we have vibe coding, which is exactly, what is vibe? Like, is that?
It's like the easiest way to write code in the world. In the past, like to be able to write code and to build an application, you had to go to university, you had to study it, you had to geek it. You don't have to anymore. Everyone who's listening to this, you must go to lovable.com, I think it is, download the app and get yourself a trial license. Coding has never been easier. You go and create an app for it. Lovable. Go download it, get a trial license. It's two geeky guys in their 20s who built this app, and it helps you write code. Super easy. And so anyone can go in and create a web page. Anyone can go and, I don't know, if you're trying to just even do something for yourself at home, you're trying to stay on top of, you're planning a wedding, create a little vibe code yourself, a little app, my wedding, this is what I need to do. These are the invitations. Create the invitation for me. Reach out to all these vendors, please. Tell them I'm vegan, I don't know what. And it just kind of builds this application for you. It could build Workday, this HR tool for you, like most likely in 2 days. Will it be like to the level of granularity that you need? Most likely not. But it will give you the art of possible, and it will help you prove out as a leader, is it going to make it?
It's, as I understood, it's more coding with regular language, and then it will actually build what you need to use using code. It will create the code for you to build the app. Okay, and then you said N8N.
N8N is just a workflow. So it just knits together the different bits of tech that you use. So also super important skill. And I think I wrote down 2 things, right? I think the Lovable, you can get the training on YouTube. And then there's also from Google, there's Grow with Google. Super cool. All the latest Google tools. And Google, everyone always thinks it's just search. It is much more than search. So Google recently brought, and I'm looking down here to get the right name because it keeps changing. They bought AlphaFold. Now, AlphaFold got the Nobel Prize, right? Because they solved the 50-year challenge of protein structure prediction.
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
That's a Google product now. Yes. And so there's another Google product that they recently bought called Isomorphic Labs. Yeah.
I haven't heard of that one.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's an AI drug discovery tool. And the first drug that was discovered by AI will go through clinical trials in 2026. Yeah. And so if we think of it today, and that's why I've changed to R&D as well, because commercializing is easy stuff now with AI, right? It's the easy game. We've cracked it last year. We proved that it works. My team proved that it works. So all good. And so I've moved on to R&D because I really believe in, AI doing drug discovery. Can you imagine? They think that a lot of people out there think that AI is going to solve all unhealable sicknesses because it just continues to synthesize. It does not get tired. It has no human error. Of course, it always needs the human to then go and extract and prove it out and do the tests and do the trials, right? Of course. But then digesting the input from the trials and pivoting when needed will also be done by AI, right?
Yeah, and once one AI knows it, they all know the same. And we've talked about this before, I think, on this podcast, is that some of the R&D that's been done in the past, let's say within pharma, you might do 50 trials. Some actually work out well, and let's say some don't. The ones that don't are never publicized, so nobody knows all the mistakes that have been made. Whereas if you have something which learns as it goes and can, let's say, maybe they're not all going to distribute the knowledge at this stage. We still fall into the same trap, but at least it can simulate those experiments that fail and then move on and perform just on the ones that do seem to work. And so it's like, what do you think that's going to mean for the industry moving forward?
God, I think it's just going to be mind-blowing. I think it's not so much for industry, it's for people, right? Because there are a lot of people that are suffering today, with bigger diseases, HER2 breast cancer or God knows what, which, in some countries is absolutely unhealable, untreatable, and super expensive to treat as well, right? And a lot of part of why medicines, and this is, must say, very contradictory. So, but what I think makes medicine to some extent very expensive is the discovery phase, right? It can take 10 years to take a drug to market to actually use it on a human. Now, with AI, the discovery is accelerated, the digestion of the information of clinical trials is accelerated, all the paperwork is accelerated, and to get access, and everything is accelerated exponential. Like, it's not accelerated from 10 years to 8 years. I predict it's accelerated from 10 years to maybe, 2-3 years, or 1 year if you need to really race it, depending on the drug, right? And that will just have an incredible impact. I mean, even in Zurich here, there's a place, I think it's Zurich, and you go into this machine and it scans your body, and it can tell you if you have any tumors, if you have any kind of sicknesses from, hereditary sicknesses or anything, you go there for an hour and you have a better medical examination.
I don't know if I want to know. No,
yeah,
I do,
and there's a huge queue. There's a huge queue. Like, you can't just sign up because it's like fully booked, right? But it's also expensive. It's not covered by healthcare here in Switzerland, right? So there's still some catching up to do. But eventually, that will be the future. Yeah. You'll go into a pod. It's kind of spacey. It's happening today, right? It's not like in Elysium in this movie
just
where
thinking
someone,
of Elysium.
Elysium,
when they have to break in to put the kid in the thing to heal her of the cancer. Yeah, but
right?
It's probably closer than we think.
Yes, it's coming closer than you think. And I think it's going to be exponential. So I don't think, like, you and I, if we meet in a year, it will be different, man. Things will have changed at speed that we wouldn't be able to comprehend. And of course, there'll be adoption. Of course, like, I think in daily life, in society, we won't feel it that fast, right?
No.
Because that, is a bigger lift.
But you can wake up one day and realize, what happened?
What happened?
Yeah.
Whoops. Robots on the streets. No.
It's already everywhere. We were in a hotel last week, and it's just now I saw the robot cleaning, and I was like, yeah, but that's a thing now. Like, now I've seen that a bunch of times. But the first time I saw it was in a hotel maybe 4 years ago, where they had this robot that came around to pick up your dishes. Like, it just followed the waiter, and as he's like, oh, thank you, he cleared the tape, and he just gave it to the thing. And once it was full, it just went back to the kitchen and dropped it off to wash.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's exponential change. But, you mentioned a couple of things, lovable, grow with Google. What should I be, if I want to AI up my career, right? I could be in any job right now. What should I be doing to add more value for where I'm working, or make things easier, or let's say cut through the bullshit? I think you've brought this up a couple of times today. Using AI, like, how can I get started if I don't know what I'm doing?
I think you can just ask ChatGPT how to get started.
Fair. That's actually really sound advice. Okay, cool. Well, you've outsourced that answer. Well, then, let me ask you this. Is there anything we should have talked about and we didn't talk about?
I think one thing that has been really the red thread throughout my career has been building my inner resilience. Mm-hmm. And I think that is a skill that we all must work on. Yeah. I think we all need to find whatever it is that helps us relax, really, truly relax. And I think it's also so important. The more I journey into questions of who I am and what I like and what I don't like, and listening to my body feelings, my instincts, and the more I get tuned to that, the more successful I am, because I am operating from a point of inner truth. And I know this sounds a bit spacey, but the reality is, if you're not balanced, if you don't bring your old insecurities out of your system, you'll always be carrying this baggage. And if you're carrying baggage, how can you go and be amazing, right? You can't carry this old stuff along. So I really recommend that people don't just go and sign up for Lovable. Don't just do Grow with Google. Find something that helps you kind of build your inner strength. And that can be, I know everyone's kind of doing yoga, but it could be breath work, hypnosis. It can be, there's so many things out there these days. God knows what, Qigong, God knows what, right? I really don't know, yeah. But there's all kinds of stuff out there that I engage in. I go to a retreat at least once a year or twice a year where I really do a kind of holistic inner work. And every time I come back, much more strengthened and much more clear. And the clearer I am, the clearer I can lead, right?
Usually we have a segment called Mentorship Minute, but I think we just did it.
I
think that's a great way to end it. Like, that was really amazing. Annick, thank you so much. A lot of amazing things in there today. So I hope everybody out there listens to this one. Thank you very much for coming.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, thanks so much for listening. I really appreciate it. If you made it this far, I think you might have enjoyed this. And if so, please, if you haven't done so already, like, follow, subscribe, and rate us where possible. I'd really appreciate that. And another thing I'd also appreciate is if you could share this with somebody you think needs to hear it. The goal here is to inspire, and we need to spread the word. So anything you can do to help is much appreciated. I'll see you in the next lab.